Hollywood's golden age gave us some of the most legendary stars of all time. Charming, talented, and larger than life. But behind the glitz and glamour, some of these icons had a dark side they kept hidden from the public. Today, we're exposing 13 old Hollywood stars who were terribly racist off camera. Some of them made shocking comments, while others openly supported segregation or refused to work with black actors. From Western legends to beloved comedians, their prejudices were not just private opinions. They shaped the industry and hurt countless people. You might think you know these stars, but the truth about them may change the way you see their films forever. Did James Stewart really refuse to act alongside a black co-star? Did John Wayne go on record defending white supremacy? And which beloved child star once appeared in full blackface? Stay with us as we uncover the unsettling truths behind these Hollywood icons. You'll be surprised by some of the names on this list, and by the end, you might never look at these stars the same way again. Let's dive in. James Stewart, the all-American hero's hidden prejudices. James Stewart remains one of Hollywood's most beloved actors, celebrated for his wholesome, everyman charm. His roles in It's a Wonderful Life and Mr. Smith Goes to Washington cemented his legacy as an all-American hero, an honest, hard-working man who embodied decency and morality. Off-screen, Stewart carried this persona into his public life, maintaining a reputation as a reserved yet principled figure. However, beneath this patriotic veneer lay a more complex and, at times, troubling reality. During the filming of The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, 1962, co-star Woody Strode, a black actor and former professional athlete, accused Stewart of discriminatory behavior. Strode alleged that Stewart was uncomfortable working closely with him and resisted scenes that required physical contact. In an era when racial tensions were high, such actions, whether overt or subtle, reinforced systemic biases in Hollywood. While Stewart never publicly addressed these accusations, the accounts tarnish his otherwise sterling reputation. Stewart's conservative upbringing in Indiana may have influenced his attitudes. Raised in a deeply traditional environment, he was exposed to the racial and social norms of early 20th century America. Later in life, his staunch Republican beliefs aligned him with figures resistant to the civil rights movement, including Barry Goldwater, whose campaign Stewart supported. While Stewart may not have been outwardly racist in the way some contemporaries were, his reluctance to challenge discrimination suggests a complicity in the status quo. Though Stewart remains an American icon, his story is a reminder that beloved figures are not immune to prejudice. Similarly, another Hollywood figure, William Frawley, was known not just for his on-screen grumpiness, but for his off-screen biases. William Frawley, the grumpy neighbor with deep-rooted biases. Best remembered as Fred Mertz on I Love Lucy, William Frawley was a character actor with a career spanning vaudeville, silent films, and television. His portrayal of the cranky landlord endeared him to audiences, but off-screen, his personality was even harsher. Frawley had a reputation for being irritable, difficult to work with, and unapologetically racist. Colleagues and acquaintances frequently recalled his use of racial slurs. He openly expressed disdain for minorities, often making derogatory remarks on set. His behavior reflected the era's prevailing societal norms, where casual racism was accepted or ignored by many. Some defended his attitudes as generational, dismissing them as the harmless views of an old man set in his ways. However, unlike some of his contemporaries who evolved with the times, Frawley remained unrepentant in his prejudices. Despite his biases, Frawley maintained steady work in Hollywood. His behavior, while unpleasant, was tolerated due to his status as a seasoned performer. In hindsight, his legacy is a testament to the entertainment industry's past complicity in excusing overt racism. His work may still bring joy to audiences, but his off-screen attitudes cast a long shadow over his career. While Frawley's prejudices were well known in industry circles, another Hollywood legend, John Wayne, made his controversial beliefs public in a shocking 1971 interview. John Wayne, the Western legend's controversial beliefs. John Wayne epitomized American masculinity, starring in countless westerns that defined the genre. Off-screen, he was just as outspoken as his on-screen personas. However, in 1971, an explosive Playboy interview revealed the extent of his discriminatory beliefs, shocking fans and critics alike. Wayne openly expressed support for white supremacy, stating that he believed in the superiority of white culture. He dismissed the historical significance of slavery, claiming that Black Americans had not been mistreated. His comments about Native Americans were equally troubling, justifying their mistreatment by suggesting that their land was rightfully taken because they were selfishly keeping it to themselves. Additionally, he used homophobic slurs when discussing contemporary films and social changes. These statements ignited controversy, but at the time, they did not significantly damage his career. He remained a celebrated figure, though in recent years, his legacy has faced growing scrutiny. Debates have arisen over institutions bearing his name, such as John Wayne Airport in Orange County. Some argue that his contributions to cinema should be honored separately from his personal views, while others believe his bigotry cannot be ignored. Wayne was not alone in his extreme views. Another Hollywood veteran, Walter Brennan, held similarly radical beliefs that went even further into the realm of extremism. Walter Brennan, the three-time Oscar winner's extremist views. Walter Brennan was one of the most decorated character actors of his time, winning 3 Academy Awards. He appeared in films like The Westerner and Sergeant York, often portraying gruff yet endearing side characters. However, behind the scenes, Brennan was a fervent right-wing extremist with disturbing views. A staunch supporter of the John Birch Society, a far-right group known for its pro-segregation stance, Brennan vehemently opposed civil rights initiatives. His reaction to Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination was particularly appalling, allegedly expressing joy at the news. Such statements, if true, reflect an ideology rooted in deep-seated racism. Unlike some of his peers, Brennan's views were not just private beliefs, but actively influenced his professional and personal life. He was known to clash with more progressive actors and filmmakers, refusing to work with those who challenged his hardline conservative ideals. Though his talent remains undeniable, his legacy is tainted by his extreme ideologies. While Brennan's prejudices were rooted in radical political beliefs, others, like Mickey Rooney, perpetuated harmful racial stereotypes through their performances. Mickey Rooney, the comedic actor's offensive portrayals. Mickey Rooney was a staple of classic Hollywood, known for his energetic performances in films like the Andy Hardy series. However, one of his most infamous roles remains his portrayal of Mr. Yunioshi in Breakfast at Tiffany's, 1961. Wearing exaggerated prosthetic teeth, squinting eyes, and adopting an offensive accent, Rooney's portrayal of the Japanese character was a textbook example of racial caricature. Even at the time, critics and audiences found the performance problematic. However, Rooney remained defensive, insisting it was a harmless comedic role. As awareness of racial sensitivity grew, the role became one of Hollywood's most egregious examples of yellowface. Despite the backlash, Rooney never acknowledged the harm caused by his performance. His stubborn defense of the role, even decades later, highlights the persistent racial insensitivity within Hollywood. Rooney was not the only performer to engage in racially insensitive portrayals. Even revered stars like Fred Astaire participated in blackface performances. Fred Astaire, the dance legend's blackface performance. Fred Astaire was the epitome of grace and elegance, revolutionizing dance in film alongside Ginger Rogers. Yet, his involvement in blackface performances, particularly in Swing Time, 1936, is a dark mark on his career. In the film, Astaire performs a tribute to Bill Bojangles Robinson while wearing blackface. While some defended the routine as an homage, it undeniably reinforced racial stereotypes. The casual acceptance of blackface at the time does not excuse its offensive implications. Astaire's legacy remains largely intact, but his participation in such acts reflects the widespread racial insensitivity of the era. This trend of blackface extended beyond Astaire. Even beloved singers like Bing Crosby took part in minstrel performances. Bing Crosby, the crooner's participation in minstrel shows. Bing Crosby, one of the most iconic voices of the 20th century, was synonymous with smooth vocals and timeless hits like White Christmas. His laid-back charm and effortless crooning made him one of Hollywood's most beloved stars. However, beneath his easygoing public persona, Crosby participated in racially insensitive performances that are difficult to reconcile with his otherwise amiable image. In Holiday Inn, 1942, Crosby performed in blackface during a musical number meant to celebrate Lincoln's birthday. The scene featured him with exaggerated dark makeup, singing in a stereotypical dialect, reinforcing offensive minstrel show traditions that had long been a part of American entertainment. Although the film itself remains a holiday classic, this sequence stands as a stark reminder of Hollywood's complicity in racial stereotyping. While Crosby's participation in minstrel shows was part of Hollywood's racial blind spots, even America's sweetheart, Judy Garland, was complicit in similar portrayals. Judy Garland, the beloved star's complicity in racial caricatures. Judy Garland is best remembered as the wide-eyed, golden-voiced actress who captured hearts as Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, 1939. Her talent was undeniable, and her personal struggles made her an endearing, tragic figure. Yet, even Garland was not exempt from participating in racial caricatures that Hollywood so often embraced during the early 20th century. One of the most glaring examples of this is found in Babes in Arms, 1939, where Garland performed in blackface. The film, a light-hearted musical about young performers putting on a show, featured a sequence where Garland and her co-stars darkened their skin and exaggerated their mannerisms in a minstrel-style performance. This was not an isolated incident, as she was also involved in other racially insensitive portrayals throughout her career. While Garland's blackface performances were symptomatic of the industry's broader issues, Laurence Olivier's portrayal of Othello in full blackface in 1965 was a shocking display of outdated racial attitudes in a more modern era. Laurence Olivier, the esteemed actor's controversial role choices. Laurence Olivier is widely regarded as one of the greatest actors of all time, known for his masterful performances in Shakespearean adaptations and classic dramas. However, one of his most infamous choices came in 1965, when he portrayed Othello in blackface for a film adaptation of the Shakespearean tragedy. Olivier, committed to his craft, believed he was staying true to the theatrical traditions of Shakespearean performance. Historically, white actors had played Othello in blackface due to racial restrictions in British and American theater. However, by the mid-20th century, this practice was widely recognized as offensive and outdated. While Paul Robeson and other black actors had already portrayed Othello on stage, Olivier insisted on donning dark makeup and adopting exaggerated vocal inflections for his interpretation of the character. Olivier's blackface performance was particularly jarring given the time period, but the practice had been widespread in earlier decades, so much so that even child stars like Shirley Temple participated in racially insensitive performances. Shirley Temple, America's sweetheart's involvement in blackface performances. Shirley Temple was the face of innocence and joy during the Great Depression, charming audiences with her curly hair, dimpled smile, and infectious tap dancing. As Hollywood's most famous child star, she symbolized optimism in an era of economic despair. However, even she was not immune to the industry's racial blind spots. One of the most notable examples of this was her role in The Littlest Rebel, 1935, where she performed in blackface. The film itself is problematic, as it presents an overly romanticized view of the Confederacy and slavery. In one scene, Temple darkens her face and mimics racial stereotypes that were commonplace in minstrel performances. While she was a child and likely had no say in the decision, the moment remains a troubling example of how deeply ingrained racial insensitivity was in Hollywood at the time. While Shirley Temple was a child star following industry norms, one performer built his entire career on blackface performances. Al Jolson, the man synonymous with the minstrel tradition. Al Jolson, the performer, synonymous with blackface. Al Jolson is a figure whose name is inextricably linked with blackface. Best known for starring in The Jazz Singer, 1927, the first feature-length talkie, Jolson built much of his career on minstrel performances, darkening his skin to perform exaggerated caricatures of black musicians. Jolson defended his use of blackface by claiming he was honoring African-American culture, and some historians argue that he genuinely admired black music. He often supported black artists and was instrumental in helping them gain recognition in the entertainment industry. However, his performances filled with exaggerated mannerisms and dialects, reinforced harmful stereotypes that demeaned the very culture he claimed to respect. Clark Gable. The leading man's complicated relationship with race. Clark Gable, one of Hollywood's most revered leading men, was a larger-than-life figure known for his rugged charm and commanding screen presence. His performance as Rhett Butler in Gone with the Wind, 1939, solidified his place in cinema history. However, Gable's views on race were complex and, at times, contradictory, making his legacy one of both progressiveness and prejudice. One of Gable's most notable stands against racism occurred on the set of Gone with the Wind. Upon learning that the film's set had segregated restrooms for black and white actors, Gable was outraged. He reportedly threatened to quit the production unless the discriminatory facilities were removed. This act of defiance was significant, as few white actors in his position openly challenged racial injustice. His respect for his black co-stars, including Hattie McDaniel, the first African-American to win an Academy Award, was well documented, and he later mourned her exclusion from the segregated Oscar ceremony in 1940. However, Gable's personal correspondence and off-screen behavior tell a more complicated story. Letters and private conversations suggest that he casually used racial slurs, a practice that was unfortunately common among Hollywood elites of the time. While he may have taken a stand against blatant discrimination, he did not entirely break free from the prejudices of his era. Charlie Chaplin, the silent film star's racially insensitive humor. Charlie Chaplin, the silent film pioneer, is often celebrated for his timeless comedic genius. His character, the Tramp, became an enduring figure in cinema, using physical comedy to highlight social issues and human struggles. However, while Chaplin was known for his satire and social commentary, some of his work also contained racially insensitive humor that reflected the prejudices of his time. Chaplin's films often included stereotypical portrayals of ethnic minorities, using exaggerated accents, mannerisms, and physical traits for comedic effect. While his intent was often to lampoon the absurdity of societal structures, his depictions sometimes reinforced harmful stereotypes instead of subverting them. In films like The Gold Rush, 1925, his comedic gags included racial caricatures that, while not overtly malicious, played into the casual racism of early Hollywood. Despite these portrayals, Chaplin was a vocal advocate for social justice and frequently spoke out against oppression. His anti-fascist film, The Great Dictator, 1940, was a scathing critique of Adolf Hitler and totalitarianism, showcasing his willingness to use comedy as a weapon against injustice. However, his racial insensitivities reveal a blind spot common among many artists of his era. While he championed certain causes, he failed to recognize how his own work contributed to racial stereotypes. Hollywood's normalization of racial stereotypes. Throughout the early to mid-20th century, Hollywood routinely depicted racial and ethnic minorities in demeaning ways, reinforcing harmful stereotypes that shaped public perceptions. These portrayals were not simply isolated incidents, but rather an industry-wide norm that spanned decades. Even some of the most celebrated films and stars of all time played a role in perpetuating these damaging images. One of the most infamous examples is the practice of blackface, where white actors darkened their skin to portray black characters in exaggerated, stereotypical ways. From Al Jolson's The Jazz Singer, 1927, to Fred Astaire's blackface tribute in Swing Time, 1936, these performances were framed as entertainment, with little regard for the impact they had on real black communities. Similar caricatures were also applied to other racial and ethnic groups. Asian characters were frequently played by white actors in yellowface, as seen with Mickey Rooney's offensive portrayal of Mr. Yunyoshi in Breakfast at Tiffany's, 1961. Native American and Latino characters were often reduced to crude stereotypes, played by white actors in brownface. The importance of acknowledging Hollywood's past. Hollywood has long been a reflection of American society, its values, its prejudices, and its aspirations. While the industry has produced some of the most timeless and influential films in history, it has also played a significant role in perpetuating racial injustice. Acknowledging this past is not about erasing history, but about understanding it in its entirety. The process of reckoning with Hollywood's history is ongoing. In recent years, there have been increased discussions about problematic films, performances, and the legacies of major stars. Movies like Gone with the Wind, 1939, once viewed as untouchable classics, are now accompanied by disclaimers or contextual discussions about their portrayal of race. Actors and filmmakers have become more vocal about addressing past injustices, and many institutions have taken steps to re-examine honors bestowed upon controversial figures. The debate over renaming John Wayne Airport, for example, highlights the broader conversation about how society chooses to remember and honor historical figures with complex legacies.